Well, hello, welcome back to the channel here. We're back at the Reno house, and today we're going to get started on the vinyl plank flooring. And I've already did just a little bit of layout here, so let's flip the camera around here and I'll show you what we're getting into. All right, so in the dining room here, we'd already laid some flooring on a previous project. And so that basically kind of established how the rest of the house is going to be laid out. We ran it left to right, as you can see here. And when we came to the threshold here where that plank ends, used to go, well, it still does, goes in the other room, but there was carpet. So that just got a rough cut right there at the end. What we need to do, however, is we need to carry this same flooring on over into this room. So what I have done is I have transferred this edge of this floor over into the other room, and you can see that right here. I just took a level and just put it right on the edge right here where the finished edge is, and then I drew me a line, and then I took my chalk line and I extended that all the way over to the door. All right, so at the door I took a measurement from the inside corner back there all the way out to my chalk line, and then likewise I did the same thing at this door. And come to find out, the difference was about 9/16 of an inch between one room and the other, which for what we were doing here is not bad at all, considering we're dealing with old structure here. This was not new structure. So after looking at that dimension and adding the trim, the baseboard that's going to go on, plus the quarter round. Quarter round is 3/4 plus the 1/2 inch trim. We got 1 1/4 inches to deal with. 1 1/4 inches is greater than our 9/16. So what that tells me is that if I take the distance that I had divided by 7, and that is the 7 inches of the tread here from finish to finish, and I divide that out, that was the 9/16 difference that I was telling you about. So what we can do at that point is actually use a full piece. Now, if I was, 3 or 4 inches away from a derivative of 7, then I'm gonna have to start out with a shorter piece in order to allow this floor to come all the way back here and mate up with this one. So hopefully that makes sense, but the way it worked out on this floor, I had 140 inches on this side and 140 and 9/16 on the other. So 140 divided by 7 gives us 20. So we're gonna have 20 rows up through here, and we should, when we get here, line exactly up with our chalk line. So at this point in time, I've gone through, I've got my first row of vinyl planking connected. I transferred a measurement up here and I chalked another line. That's going to be my start line for this first row. And as you look at it, you can tell we got a little bit more distance off of the wall over on the right side versus over here on the left. And the reason is, like I mentioned, is that difference between one room to the next. So we've got this in here running exactly parallel with our chalk line that we're trying to get to on the back side of the room. Now, one trick to this vinyl plank flooring is on the takeoff, whenever you start, you've got to somehow secure it against the wall. Because once you start pushing the next piece on and locking it in place, that whole floor is going to move. So what I did is I lined up the front side to my chalk line, and then I went back here against the wall and I just put some drywall screws in to hold the plank from pushing back underneath that drywall and hitting the bottom plate. And I did that at each joint and each end. So now this floor cannot push any further to the outside wall. Now I can simply come in with my pattern. I'll just start right here and work from left to right and just start building the floor out. So over here I've got a little cutting table. I've got this vinyl floor cutter Came off of Amazon. You can get different kinds, but it's simply, you just pull the handle down right here and it's gonna shear off that flooring at whatever length you want. So in this case, the very first piece I cut, this was my off fall. Now, what you wanna do when you get ready to do this is make sure that you know which is your factory right, where's your cut edge, and then what side do you want facing out that you're gonna be locking into. So obviously having the gray up is where our next piece is gonna lock in. So let me move over here. I got one setting here. So there's our gray sticking out. We're gonna take this one, it goes in underneath it like this, and then we're gonna push it down and it's gonna lock in. You won't be able to see that gray. So when you do this, you gotta know what's what. My recommendation to prevent having a bunch of scrap is, if you have to cut a piece, like we did here at the end, we got a piece there about 3 foot or so. Whatever the off fall is, you wanna move it over and start your next run. So we can see here if we're looking at it, here's the piece that needs to be out towards us that the next panel is gonna lock into. We've got a factory right, and then we have our clean cut left edge. Well, if I would take this piece, remember it was down there at the end of that one, I cut it off. I'm gonna take it back to the left side. I've got my factory left, which doesn't matter because I'm up against the wall. And I've got everything that I need to simply lock that piece in place and then start out with a full one right here. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna stagger all of my joints. So I'm gonna have about 3 feet between this joint and the one that's directly behind it. Now, at some point in time, you might end up with a little bitty piece, and then you just have to decide, do I toss that thing in the trash and start with a full, or what do I do? So you can do it however you want when you get at that point, but if I was to not use that piece right now, I'm probably gonna have a hard time finding a place for it to go as we start moving through the floor. So at this point in time, I'm gonna go ahead and just start running through this. Unfortunately, I left my time-lapse camera at the house, so I'm not gonna be able to capture that, but that's not a big deal. I've already talked here for about 7 minutes on explaining what's going on here. So I'm gonna just run through this thing here. I'm working solo, so it's gonna take me just a bit. And I'm gonna start building this floor out. And then here in a bit, I'll come out 4, 5, 6 rows or so, and then I'll cut in and we will show you what it looks like. So anyway, let me get rolling with that and I'll be back here in just a second. All right, so I've been working for, I don't know, maybe an hour or so here, and here's what I got completed. A lot of up and downs for me to get everything out of the box and then cut and then installed, but just keep on keeping on and you can get it done. So that's where we're at right now. I'm gonna call it a night, and I'll be back in here tomorrow evening after my day job to continue running this out, and we should be able pretty easily to go ahead and get it ran through that doorway and probably up against the wall here. So yeah, it's moving along pretty good. Probably get that knocked out. I'm gonna have a little bit of tie-in back here to do. That is gonna take some time, but kind of just is what it is. We'll get it squared away and pushed right on through here. So took a couple of measurements. Everything's running just like I planned with my chalk line, so everything is good. I will click back on here tomorrow and we'll continue moving along here. All right, so you've been watching on the time-lapse camera while I run up the rest of the flooring to the door. And this is our main layout point right here that we wanted to make sure that we carried everything straight through. And we chalked that line and extended that line on out here. And then we measured back to the wall on both sides to see if we were running parallel with our chalk line. made some adjustments and started laying that floor out. And everything worked out as planned. I did have to move just a little bit. The floor had slid that way as I pushed and locked everything in, just about 3/16. So I made that adjustment, but I wanted to show you down here, you can see my chalk line. Right here in that chalk line is the finished edge of where the floor needed to be. So you can see we're pretty much right on it. We're just a smidgen off here, which is not a big deal. Everything is still locking in just fine. So I wanted to show that piece of it so that you could see the importance of doing that layout and kind of what the end result was. So what we end up with is the floor that will continue right from this room, right into that room, and on around into that old flooring that was already installed. So what I'm going to be doing now is going to be a little more tedious, because I'm going to have to go ahead and pull out the flooring that's in this closet right here. And the reason is you can't get that floor to, you can get it to slide between the two, but you won't be able to get it to lock into that lip. So that's pretty difficult without tearing it up. Somebody that does this for a living might be able to do it, but for me, that's not an option. So anyway, I'm just going to keep working back this way, and we'll just keep carrying it on through and tying it into the other end there where our door is. And then eventually we'll have everything wrapped up here. So I'm going to flip back over to our time-lapse camera, probably view from this angle, and we'll just start getting everything worked in as it needs to go. So all right, back over to the time-lapse. All right, so I'm just working in those new pieces here. As mentioned, I had to pull some of these out in order to get everything locked back in, and had to end up pulling everything out of that closet. As mentioned earlier, this stuff can only go on from left to right, so in my case I had to remove some back in the closet in order to get the start point and not be fighting against another piece. So carry that on through the living room and then down the hallway towards that bathroom where we laid the tile at a couple of videos ago. Then I had a small utility room off the bedroom that has the water heater in it. So I had a little bit of extra flooring here, so we just went ahead and put that in this room. And the pipe sticking up there, I cut it off, and that's my drain just in case the water heater would leak. We got a pan and a drain down the floor. So we slide back over to the kitchen area, and this here is the slab where we poured the concrete for the addition. And so this flooring here is a perfect solution, because it's got about an 1/8 inch or so cushioned backing on it, so you don't need any kind of underlayment to put down. So it really makes it easy. You can see it there in the video, that blue. And yeah, just keep running through this thing from left to right, locking it in, making sure everything's snapped into place. Did want to mention here, this is that ProCore vinyl planking that you get from Lowe's, and it's a really nice product. It's very economical, it's waterproof, and it's not priced too bad either. It's a good DIY type flooring. You don't need to have any special tools or anything. So working out the rest here underneath the stove, and then back where the refrigerator is going to do. I've seen sometimes they won't run flooring all the way back in there, but it leaves that little lip, and then you'll end up have an issue with it later if you need to slide your fridge or your stove out. It just kind of makes it difficult. So we ran all the way back in underneath. And then the small utility room where the new furnace and everything's installed, we had some extra. Again, we weren't planning on putting it down here, but we had it laying there, so we went ahead and worked that out as well. Anyway, that's going to conclude the flooring video here on the renovation. Hit like, subscribe, share the video, and we'll see you next time. Shush it.